No one deserves the torment and suffering Ingrid Bishop has been through in the last 6 years. It started when her 21-year-old son, Josh Warneke, was attacked and killed after a night out in Broome. But what compounded this mother's trauma was the incompetence of the West Australian police. They bumbled and bungled their investigation for 2.5 years before they finally arrested a suspect. Gene Gibson is now in jail for killing Josh Warneke. But Ingrid is convinced the evidence against him is so flimsy, the police got the wrong man. And she's so sure Gibson didn't kill her son, she's fighting to have him released. But as Liam Bartlett reports, if it wasn't Gene Gibson, then who killed Josh Warneke?
Sunset at Broome, on the remote Kimberley coast of Western Australia, is stunning.
This is where Josh would walk the dog. This was his space, he'd hang out.
But when Ingrid Bishop strolls along this beach, all she feels is sadness.
Because it is a peaceful, serene part of the world, but there's no beauty here anymore. It's just a very painful place.
6 years ago, her eldest son, Josh Warneke, was killed in Broome in a random and brutal attack. He was just 21.
I hope I look as good as what you do when I'm 30.
Everyone knew him for that smile. He had this biggest set of teeth you've ever seen.
You must have been very close.
Oh yeah, Josh was very family orientated. On the Thursday, he and I were talking and we actually said to each other, "I love you."
It's a spur of the moment.
So what parents get that opportunity for their last words to be, "I love you"? And the next time I looked upon Josh was the next day in the morgue with his head injuries.
Ingrid Bishop has endured so much since losing Josh. She grieves for him every day. But extraordinarily, she's now on the strangest of missions: to get the man police say killed her son released from jail. She's convinced he didn't do it.
Why are you trying to save Gene Gibson?
Because it's the right thing to do. It's the right thing to do. Gene Gibson is innocent. This is a no-brainer. And if no one else is going to do it, I will do it.
Gene Gibson was charged with the murder of Josh Warneke in August 2012, 2.5 years after his death. But the lengthy police investigation and the evidence detectives used to accuse Gibson of the crime in the first place are now completely discredited. Ingrid is searching for answers.
I will never get my son back, but I'm not going to have someone sit in a prison for how many years because no one else could be bothered doing their jobs. That's exactly what's happened, and shame on the lot of them.
Do you think there has been a miscarriage of justice?
I would have thought there's a clear case here of a miscarriage of justice.
It was a Thursday evening, the 25th of February 2010, and Josh was out in Broome with friends. In the early hours of the next morning, CCTV footage shows the young apprentice arriving at a nightclub. And a few hours later, walking to McDonald's. He then said goodnight to his mates before starting the short walk to his home. This is where Josh was last seen alive. Just before 3 in the morning, he was spotted here, walking in that direction, making his way home. Minutes later, he was dead. And after 6 years, how he died and who really killed him remains a mystery. Right from the start, the police investigation was either lazy or incompetent, or both. It dragged on and on without progress until August 2012, when police arrested 21-year-old Gene Gibson. Not only did investigators claim he'd confessed to killing Josh Warneke, they also boasted they had substantial other evidence to support their case.
Why do you think Gene is innocent?
Firstly, forensics don't stack up.
The forensics paint a very different picture to the story that Gene Gibson has told or was coerced to tell. There is no doubt that he was coerced.
Ingrid has spent countless hours sifting through the case. She's convinced police have the wrong man. The evidence against Gibson is flawed, and most damning, his confession about how he killed Josh is nonsense.
First, he told police he ran Josh over in the car, but the forensic evidence made that impossible. Then Gibson admitted to hitting Josh with a rock, but again, the evidence just didn't match up. Finally, he told police he'd hit Josh 3 times with a round metal pole that he found at the base of this tree. He was pretty sure about that because it was in front of this house. Problem is, this house hadn't been built at the time Josh was murdered.
And it gets worse. Despite apparently admitting to the killing, Gibson couldn't remember where it actually took place. He also says Josh was wearing a shirt when he wasn't.
No, he had no shirt on. His shirt was tucked down the back of his shorts. It was a hot night, very hot night, warm nights in Broome.
Former Broome taxi driver and paramedic Jim McCall was the first person to discover Josh's body.
He was without a shirt on, so you could actually see if he had been hit by a car. There was no sign of any bruising whatsoever. No tread marks or anything like that.
Jim McCall's account also exposes more holes in Gibson's so-called confession.
He was lying basically outwards towards the road, so basically from there looking out towards the road.
Perpendicular.
Yep, perpendicular road.
See, it's interesting because Gene Gibson told police that he was lying this way,
This way?
parallel.
No,
That's not right.
no. Definitely not right. It was definitely perpendicular.
When Josh's body was examined, a clump of hair was found clenched in one of his hands. It was sent to the Australian Federal Police Laboratory in Canberra for analysis. The police here didn't wait for the results. They charged Gibson with murder anyway. But incredibly, the AFP found those hairs had been cut through by a sharp object, like an axe or a tomahawk.
This explosive evidence directly challenged Gene Gibson's story that he'd killed Josh with a round metal pole. Forensics proved it was a weapon with a sharp edge. That's also what eyewitness Jim McCall told police.
As a paramedic, was it clear to you what could have caused his death?
Well, I gave the opinion to the police when I first talked to them that he was hit on the head with an axe or a machete. So when I looked at it, there was a couple of gashes down there.
So, Gene Gibson's story is he hit him with a round metal pole. You don't think that's possible, do you?
No. Definitely not.
But the police were convinced that in Gene Gibson, they had their man. And from that point, this poorly educated Aboriginal man never stood a chance.
I think that would be a very scary situation for Gene.
Gibson is from Kuakura, Australia's most remote community. Both his parents were alcoholics. His father died when he was very young. When the police first went to Gibson, they questioned him for 9 hours. But they didn't record it as demanded by law. It wasn't voluntary, and they didn't bother to get an interpreter. You see, Gibson can barely speak or understand English.
I believe that Gene Gibson does not understand the full extent of what all the conversations were. There's a strong suggestion to say that he has fetal alcohol spectrum disorder. So obviously he's got some significant health and wellbeing issues.
In August 2014, Gibson was supposed to stand trial for murder. But in a blow for police, a Supreme Court judge ruled the confession was so dodgy it couldn't be used. As a result, the murder charge was dropped, and in a deal, Gibson agreed to plead guilty to the lesser offence of manslaughter.
People absolutely plead guilty to something that they didn't do. It's a value judgment they make, especially when the stakes are very high and they don't want to bet that much on their future.
Prominent criminal lawyer and Queen's Counsel Tom Percy is not surprised that Gibson accepted the plea deal.
It's a very big decision to make. You go and you're betting a life sentence against a 7-year sentence that you'll be believed by potentially a jury panel which come from a completely different ethnic background to you.
All white.
Yeah, and and there's often a prejudice in a courtroom where the average juror thinks, well, he wouldn't be here if he wasn't guilty, would he?
You think it would have been daunting for him to face a murder trial?
Oh, look, he was an accident waiting to happen in the witness box, I would have thought. And if you're not particularly articulate in the witness box, you can be in a lot of trouble.
Gibson has now been behind bars for 4 years, but it hasn't been the end of the matter, because the rest of the police case has come under increased scrutiny. The case is now collapsing as new evidence comes to light.
With no confession, police were left with just 2 witnesses, 2 men who say they were with Gene Gibson that night. Originally, they insisted nothing happened, but after hours of police interrogation, they agreed, yes, Gene Gibson probably did it. Well, 2 years later, those men have been re-interviewed, and guess what? They have now gone back to their original story and say Gene Gibson is not a killer.
The 2 key witnesses, Tristan Nagamara and Edwin Mandajara, live in the remote Kimberley community of Balgo. We tracked them down to do separate interviews and made sure we had an interpreter present.
Okay, so let's start at the beginning.
It was their incriminating statements that put Gibson in jail.
I was frightened. Yes, I was frightened.
But tonight, the young men want to put the record straight.
Why did you tell the police that Gene Gibson killed Josh?
Because the coppers that was like threatening me, or like I thought I was gonna go to prison too.
The detectives told me that he did it, and I didn't know where I was standing then, so I had to point the finger at him because I knew they were gonna pin someone. But I don't know who.
On you?
Yeah, they were gonna pin someone, you know, like they were pushing me in to say that he did it.
When you found out that Gene had pleaded guilty to manslaughter, what did you think then?
I've asked the Lord to forgive me for what I did, and because I lied, because I know he didn't do it.
It was part of your statement.
Yep.
That put him in that spot.
Yeah.
That's put him in jail. And is that why you feel guilty?
Yeah, that's why I feel guilty, and I felt ashamed of myself. And, you know, most of his family are here.
The men admit to being with Gene Gibson in a stolen car the night Josh Warneke was killed, but say their friend was not involved.
Did Gene Gibson hit anybody that night?
No.
Did he hit a white boy?
No.
Do you think Gene is a killer?
I don't think he's a killer. He's just a kid, you know.
Do you know who killed Josh Warneke?
I don't know who killed Josh Warneke.
In Gene Gibson's case, the only reason he came to the attention of police because he was, he happened to be in a stolen car. And from there, it's escalated, hasn't it?
You find someone in the wrong place at the wrong time, in the wrong circumstances, quite often they will be a subject of investigation, and sometimes police feel some pressure on them to get a suspect and start moving in that direction. And then, unfortunately, sometimes the blinkers go on and they don't want to look outside their line of inquiry.
Do you think that's what's happened in Gene Gibson's case?
I think almost certainly that's happened.
You thought you knew who killed your son, and now what do you really know?
Nothing. I have no idea who killed Josh. I know who didn't kill Josh, and that's Gene Gibson. That's what I do know.
That leaves a bigger question.
Yeah. Who did it? Who's wandering around in Broome who's committed a murder?
Still to come, Ingrid's fight for answers.
I will grind this organisation back to the bone if I need to.
And finally, could new evidence reveal who really killed Josh?
Doesn't it amaze you that the man who said he killed Josh with a tomahawk has not been re-interviewed?
I'm furious.
G'day.
That's next on 60 Minutes.